Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Sagittarius for June 2016. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, where you can see more about my blog. I write about astrology and other topics. And while you're there, sign up for my free email newsletter and become part of my community and get great things that go along with that. So in June, we've got some major convergences of outer planets. We're going to talk about that a little later. First, let's talk about things specific for Sagittarius. So the early degree placements, and this is going to be some middle degree placements, but coming soon for the rest of you, so everyone pay attention. Everyone will have this energy and focus coming. It's just going to be a little bit staggered. So again, a reminder, the early degree placements are the November born Sages, or the 0 to 9 degrees or so. So that leads us like November born to like December 1st. So middle degree placements are around December 2nd through the 11th, and late degree placements are from the 12th through the 21st. The reason why I say around instead of exactly and being concise is because astrology is very rarely, just easy where we can just say one thing that is true all the time. And this is an example of that. The sun moves into Sagittarius on a different day in different years. So it might move in a day earlier than it usually does in 1 year, and that would pull the first third of the sign a day earlier, which would pull it all up, or be a day later, you see? So the sun doesn't move into Sagittarius on the same day every year, on the same calendar day every year, and that's why I say around. In order to see exactly, you'd have to look to see what day the sun went into Sag in the year you were born, and then you can add your 10 degrees for, from that day for early degrees, and then stagger it from there. Okay, so the reason why I differentiate between early and middle and late degrees because it is more accurate to do it this way. It's more trouble for me to do it this way, but it's more informative for you for me to do it this way, because the early degree chart will often look very different than the late degree chart. And so rather than give a general reading that might fit for some people and not for others, I want to try to break it down for you. That's why I do that. So the early degree placements coming soon for the rest of you, some middle will be grouped into this. In June are going to have the sun, Venus, and the new moon in the 7th house. The 7th house is all about relationships. It has to do with your romantic relationships. It has to do with your client relationships, business, like work relationships, coworkers, anything that is an important, notable one-on-one relationship. Anything that isn't, really, so it could be in any division of life. And the Venus being there can often bring harmony to your relationships. It can bring more love and more romance. The new moon opens up opportunities. So that's all very exciting. The sun being there is generally a positive thing as well. However, one aspect of the sun being there, just imagine it's like a spotlight. So if you add wattage to a light and you have more light in a room, then you can see the subtle nuances of design, and that's cool, right? But you can also see the dust on the blinds and, the other things that you weren't really aware of before. So sometimes the sun in that house, wherever it is, in this case relationships, can bring focus or attention on something, and sometimes it's a positive thing, but sometimes it's like, ooh, that's a problem. I didn't see that before, or I did, but I ignored it. Sagittarius are good at that, right? Just not glossing over the things that aren't good. So you'll have a likelihood of lots of blessings and harmony in this house, but the sun being there also could bring up some things that are kind of put in your face to be dealt with. So if you have heard yourself say, my life would be great if this person would blah, 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 and this person would just do what they were supposed to do, or this person would just blah, whatever. If you've heard yourself say that your life would be great if someone else would just act a certain way, you want to turn on your siren for the accountability police and bring in the accountability police, because in a holographic reality, you are having a reflector in that person showing you something unresolved within yourself. And yes, maybe in the third dimension, everyone could agree that person needs to get a job, or that person needs to be nicer, or that person needs to do something, and it's true your life would be better if they acted in a better way. But of course, I ask the question, and I see the astrology bringing up the potential to look at the question, why are you in that situation where you have this pattern in your life? Because the seed of empowerment comes from realizing that the pattern originates within you. And so your empowerment is within you, you're not a slave to someone else's behavior. That you can use that reflection, turn it inward by looking to see what within yourself is attracting this and resolving it. And then you can be free of those kind of things. And I have applied this every which way. I've helped other people to apply this every which way, and it is true all of the time. So you just have to get really raw with your quest here. And the sun in this placement might give you that opportunity. But at the same time, you've got the blessings and the harmony and the new openings and all that too. Maybe your relationships will get better because you are taking responsibility for your role in the co-creation. Okay, so the rest of the middle degree placements and the late degree placements, so really pretty much all the December born Sages after the 1st, and from 10 to 29 degrees for your rising sign, you're going to have all this strong focus in the 6th house. And even the early degree placements are going to have some focus still in the 6th house. First of all, because Mercury will be there for you. For the rest of you, you'll have the Sun and Venus and the new moon, like we were talking about in the 7th house for the earlier ones. You'll have all that in the 6th house for middle and late. But all Sages have a chance for profound 6th house effects, even without this smaller focus. You know, I say smaller because personal planets being in a house are a smaller, shorter term focus than outer planets converging in a way that light up your 6th house. But that is also happening. So you have short-term focus, long-term focus, the small guys, the heavy hitters, all surrounding this 6th house. And I'll get into some more details about possible 6th house implications and make some suggestions. But basically the 6th house has to do with your health, your vibrance, your well-being, and all of the things that are interfering with you having your best health. Medical diagnosis or medical diagnostics, any kinds of testing or research or anything with experimenting with your diet, anything like that, is all in the 6th house. Your routine of diet, supplements, medications, exercise, that's all in the 6th house. So there's this huge support for that. But then there's also this spotlight that's kind of helping you to get to the bottom of some things. The 6th house also has to do with animals and pets. And the 6th house has to do with your daily experience. Astrologers will often call it the house of work, like daily work. So if you work in an office, it would rule your workplace dynamics. But if you're self-employed or you don't have a job, what you do every day is your 6th house. It's like your routine, the places that you usually are. If you go to a coffee shop all the time, that's in your 6th house. You know, it's something having to do with your daily experience. So there's a lot of energy converging to try to make your daily experience better. So whether it's improvements at work, or whether it's leaving a job because it was stressful and then your daily life improves, or because you needed a job and you get one and your daily life improves, there's a massive, massive amount of support, short-term and long-term, that's wanting to help you improve your daily experience. So if you look around and you would say, okay, well, I'd love to have this and this and this in my daily experience, you have a lot of help in June. The full moon is happening at 29 degrees of Sagittarius. So a full moon in your sign is especially notable for you compared to all of the other signs. You usually get one of these a year, and it's going to be on June 20th. The new moon will be on June 4th. That's in Gemini at 14 degrees. And you can watch my video, if you haven't already, do a search for Annie Botticelli, Making Your Wishes Come True, where I talk about using astrological power periods and principles of manifesting to maximize things like a new moon wish. So you can wish for all things around Gemini. So communication, devices, transportation, Do note that it's not the best time to buy devices if you can help it, or vehicles if you can help it, because Mars is still in retrograde until the very end of the month. But it's a good time to make your wishes and do research for these things. Okay, so the full moon being in your sign brings culmination, brings endings, brings completion. For many people, they're going to be ending a school program or a teaching program or something involving learning, teaching, education. Some people will have a culmination with something involving religion or their spiritual pursuits. Some people will have this completion or ending have something to do with international business or connections with international people or groups, or writing or publishing or speaking, anything with getting your word out there. So many Sages are going to be thrown into the limelight from this full moon. You will be especially affected if your birthday is December 16th through the end of the sign, like mine is on December 16th, or if you have 25 through 29, or like 24 through 29 degrees of any Sag placement, your sun or any other thing, or anything up to like 4 degrees of Capricorn, which I also have. So this is a big full moon for me, and it's going to be for a lot of people. So it's like a fullness, a completion. Some people experience drama at the full moon, and it's like an emotional shaking off. I always describe it like a dog shaking off when they're wet, and it's getting emotions all over the place or water all over the place. But many people have an actual culmination that is like so emotional, but it's happy. It's like happy tears. So there's a lot of strength around this full moon having happy tears of culmination with all Sag related things. The early and most middle degree placements are going to have this happen in the first house. Some people can alternatively or at the same time experience this full moon as some sort of health crisis or health thing coming up to be looked at. And there's lots of health things, as we talked about, that kind of flank this potential. So you could have, some recognition for something at the same time as you're really tired because you've been working so hard, and then you have some, you're down with the flu or something like that. So the reason I tell you this beforehand is because you want to beef up your body before a full moon in your first house. You want to beef up your mind before a full moon in your 12th house. The later degree placements are going to have this in the 12th house of the mind. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But the first house, you want to make sure you're on vitamin C and your elderberry and, whatever immune boosters, probiotics, stuff like that. Of course, I'm not a doctor. You have to make sure that this is okay with your regimen and your situation or whatever. But these are common things that people do to boost their immune system. And when you have a full moon in your first house, it might indicate that you're running a little bit slack, and you need to beef up that energy and support it. But it can also happen at the same time as the other manifestations. Now, for the late degree placements with this fullness coming in your 12th house, sometimes that is like a little bit of a crisis, like a mini crisis. I say mini because things involving full moon or new moon for that matter, but we're talking about the full moon here. So they're usually short-lived. There's like something that blows over. If it's a culmination of something, there might be long-standing effects from it, but the actual height of it, is like lasting for a couple of days. So if it's something stressful, then know that it's going to pass very soon. It's not the type of crisis that is like a really long time crisis of the soul. Although I suppose that anything could happen, but it's really a shorter term thing. So in any case, 12th house, later degree placements, full moon there, has to do with your mind. And the 12th house has to do with fears. So sometimes a fear will come up before you, and either it will be really happening, or you're so afraid about it and the potential has come up, or you've projected your fear onto something and it's not anything like what you're worried about. And then you're like, oh gosh, I'm so upset about this. And it's like, it wasn't even anything. There's this fullness, completion, something welling up having to do with fears or your subconscious mind. Alternatively, this could manifest as a major spiritual insight that you have this culmination while in meditation. The 12th house rules meditation, or other psychological excavation, through past life regression, or tapping, or doing something with your unconscious mind. you could have a major advancement or crack through a major block that you had, something like that. So there's a lot of energy there. So these are some of the things specific for Sagittarius, and we still have some really important transits to talk about that are global. We've got 2 convergences of heavy hitters, plus Mars going direct. So I'm going to talk more about that. Now, I call the theme of the month of June, the heavy hitters converge, because outer planets, when they're locked together in a meaningful geometric combination, are like the heavy hitters. Whenever we have an aspect of an outer planet, meaning the ones that take longer to go around, like Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, or if you're looking at asteroids, Chiron, etc., these planets take a long time to get around. So when they make an aspect, especially to another outer planet that takes a long time to move around their orbits, their influences last for a longer period of time than the ones with the personal planets, unless of course there's a personal planet being retrograde, that's different. But as far as an actual aspect occurring within personal planets, you might feel those effects for a couple of days. But the story of outer planets getting together, that tells a story over a long period of time. It makes me think of when I was growing up in New York City. When I was a little kid, I was a baseball fanatic. I was quite a tomboy, and me and my little friends would obsess over baseball and would watch it with my dad, and we would just get so excited when the guys who would be the ones that would hit the ball out of the park regularly would come up to bat. They called them the heavy hitters. And you didn't know if this was going to be a time they were going to hit a home run, but the odds were more likely that they were going to hit a home run than anybody else. Everyone was just, waiting with excited anticipation, especially if there are men on base, And that's the energy of June as it relates to the heavy hitters in the cosmos, because we have 2 convergences of heavy hitters. The first one is between Saturn in Sagittarius and Neptune in Pisces. Now, this aspect is a square. A square is known to be a challenging aspect. I don't want you to fear squares, however, because sometimes it's a square that we need, or a point of conflict that we need to crack open something up to another level, It's like it's a point of conflict that from it, you can completely improve your life and your life experience. All transits, especially the challenging ones, show weak spots. So this transit will be no exception. Saturn in Sagittarius and Neptune in Pisces in a square, this happened in the beginning part of this cycle. It was the last days of November 2015 through like December 4th of 2015. So the end of November, beginning of December of 2015 is when this happened first. It happens now for the second time, June 5th through June 18th, with the strongest point being on June 18th, but very strong for that whole time. And you'll feel it before those dates and after. It's a long-term story. And it's a theme that's following from the end of last year into this year, and it reaches its culmination like the end of August 30th through around September 21st of 2016. So over the course of the year, from the end of 2015 through almost the end of 2016, there's been this point of conflict. And so themes that came up at that point very likely will either come up again if they hadn't been resolved, or related themes will come up, or maybe different manifestations. But many, many people are going to have this issue come up in the form of security. And many people will have it in the form of internet security. When Neptune, the energy of Neptune and Pisces is very much behind the scenes. It's private stuff. So things that you want to be private, with Saturn coming and making this square to Neptune, they might not be private anymore. So I always post these horoscopes at least a month and sometimes more early, so that you can have a heads up for what's coming, so that you can take action. So one of the places that I recommend that you take action here is around this square, and it's around security. So I think it's a wonderful idea for you to change your passwords, to add whatever steps you can to beef up the security, to have a professional do a security check even, or research ways that, if you don't have the money to do that, research ways to beef up your internet security. Be careful of the things you post on Facebook and social media. Just have a new level of awareness of apps and how people are gathering information about you and your what you're doing on the internet, things like that. This could also be home security or work security or anything having to do with things that you want to be private that might not be completely secured. So you want to try to go through between the time you listen to this and then and strengthen as many of these weak links as possible. That's a really good use of the energy. There are also likely to be a lot of conflicts or things that come up regarding fear and faith. And so here are some questions to ask that can lead you down a good path with using this energy in the best way. One is where, and this is kind of along the lines of what I was just talking about with security, but where are you putting your trust? And is that well placed? And that can be having nothing to do with internet security. It could be in relationships. It could be with, who knows, whatever. Ask the question, where are you placing your trust? And maybe it's not the best place to place it. Where could you place more trust and you're not? There's also a very major spiritual component to this, because trusting in the benevolent source and clearing up any issues you have with your connection to the divine could be what's coming up here for many people. So maybe you're placing your trust in things that are changeable and movable in the third dimensional reality, and we all know that those things are change and or always changing, but the connection with the divine is something that isn't changing. So spiritual revolution could occur from this transit for many. Where are your boundaries? Are they secure? Should they be more secure in certain places? And should they be less secure in certain places? Sometimes we're putting up walls in places where we really want something to come in, So this square can bring up all of those things. If you want more love to come into your life, if you want more money to come into your life, figuring out where you're putting up blocks to receiving those things is going to be relevant for many people. Of course, I always love suggesting inner work, because sometimes this boundary setting thing is not in our conscious control. It's very much in our unconscious program. And the only way that you can really get at those unconscious programs is by working on the unconscious level. One of the books that I talk about all the time that works very well for helping you to set healthy boundaries in places where you need them and take some extra walls away in places where you're trying to bring more in is a book called The Presence Process by Michael Brown. It's masterful for that. So you can look to see where your boundaries need to be bolstered and where you need to be a little bit more lax in certain places, things like that. It's like the showdown between reality and illusion, and form and formlessness. So all the many ways that those conflicts can come up, this story has been brought up at the end of last year for special focus, and the story is getting stronger now, and it will reach its culmination at the end of August into September. So the next major convergence of heavy hitters we have, and this one I'm all smiles about, even though I'm going to make lemonade out of the challenging one and tell you how you can make the most of it when there's a really great aspect like a trine, like this second convergence, which is between Jupiter in Virgo and Pluto in Capricorn. I'm going to be really excited about that. So Jupiter in Virgo is very much about everything Virgo, expanding everything Virgo. And Virgo has to do with your health, your diet, your regimen, yoga, meditation, medical diagnostics. Many people have had major enigmatic health stories, and they're trying to, like a super detective, get to the bottom of what is happening with their health. And Pluto is the best ally in this because Pluto goes deep into research. Pluto rules research. And Pluto in Capricorn is very practical. So having this trine, which is strongest between June 23rd and June 30th. And again, there's a story with this. It started in mid-October 2015. It happened the second time mid-March 2016. And now it reaches its culmination with this aspect at the end of June. So many people who have been on a wild health journey, you might have some massively good news, or at least massively enlightening news that can then put you in the direction for better health. Many people are going to see movement forward in the arena of health or diet or anything like that. If you are a person who has MS, autoimmune, any other kind of autoimmune things, inflammatory based problems, colitis, anything involving inflammation, problems with your skin, anything that just seems like whatever you're doing to it, you're not hitting it at all. There's a couple of resources I'm going to recommend for your journey. One is a book called Medical Medium. Medical Medium is a Hay House book, and I'll put it in the link below this video. And it is very interesting. It's very different, and maybe some of you won't resonate with it, but many more people are going to have a lot of answers come here. But he's basically talking about how many of the things that are plagues for our time, from the health perspective, are actually based in virus. And I know that research that I've seen about cancer, they're finding more and more cancers are linked to viruses. So this isn't really very surprising, or metaphysical for that matter, even though the person who brings it is a medium, between worlds. The information is very much based in science from what I've been researching myself. So there could be a viral component to the things that you think are not virally based, and by treating it, you could all of a sudden heal from something that you're not supposed to heal from. Now, of course, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm offering a resource that could change your life. So check out Medical Medium, Hay House. And another idea is to get some genetic testing. If you've had a lot of problems, you could narrow down your specific issues by having some genetic testing. A basic genetic test that will give you a lot of information and is not as expensive as some of the other ones is called 23andMe. It's the number 23andMe. And this will let you know if you have certain parts of your liver function that don't work, which would create all these other problems. If you have certain liver pathway problems, etc., or other things that could be relevant to your health. There's someone else that I'm going to recommend, his name, and I'll put all of these links underneath this video, and is a man, his name is Gino, and he is a friend of mine who is very gifted with understanding how science and physiology work, and he has helped many people heal from things that were considered terminal. So if you look up genospassion.com, or I think it's .com, or I'll put the link below here, maybe Gino can assist you with your particular situation. And he likes to work along with your doctor to see your blood tests and things like that. So many people are going to have good news or breakthroughs along those fronts, and maybe some of these resources will be part of that. What's very exciting about this transit is that it's reaching its culmination at this point. The previous transit we talked about, we're kind of still in the middle of that story, but this one is reaching this conclusion, and it's such a wonderful aspect. So other things that could come up here are things involving pets or animals, since Virgo rules those areas. Also involving your quality of work experience or daily experience. Virgo rules what you do every day, what your experience is like every day. So when you have Jupiter in Virgo, it's working on trying to make improvements in your day-to-day schedule. So if you look at your life and you say, oh God, I need to work less, Jupiter in Virgo can help you with that. If you're like, oh gosh, I don't have a job, I need to work more, Jupiter can help you with that. Whatever your subjective experience of improvement of your daily schedule is, Jupiter is working really hard to help you with that. And as of the time it went direct in May, those things started lighting up again. And now when it reaches this culmination of this activation with Pluto in Capricorn at the end of June, you could see some major improvements in your work-life balance, whatever you've got going on in your daily schedule. So that's really exciting. Also, many people will experience this trine with Jupiter and Pluto as bringing them advancements on the fronts of work, career, and life purpose. Because Pluto being in Capricorn, Capricorn rules work, career, and life purpose. So Jupiter being in a great angle there can help to accentuate, unblock, free, synergize, bring great juju to your work and career and life purpose areas of life. So that's another way that you might see this trine story reach a culmination at the end of June. Third piece that is very relevant is that on June 29th, Mars is going direct. If you've been listening to my reports for a while, I've been talking about Mars in its pre-shadow retrograde, in its retrograde, and now on June 29th, Mars finally goes direct. It has a pretty long shadow period on the back end. It will be in the post-shadow period until August 21st. But with every day that marches on past June 29th, you're getting more and more clear of it. So if you've got to launch something, do something new, if you've been waiting, July is your month to do that, and the first little bit of August, because then we're going to get into Mercury shadow again, and it's not going to be the time to launch things. There will be some even better stars for launching in the last 3 weeks of October and all of November and the first couple of days of December. That period of time at the end of the year is actually the most open than any we've had this entire year of 2016, because the other period we had, like February, March, and then this one in July into the beginning of August, those all have some influence of shadow, of retrogrades of personal planets, even though there's some workable ground. So if you're not quite ready to launch, or something, you really want to have all the personal planets clear, maybe you'll want to lean towards that second window, but you'll just have to feel it out, because I don't know what your personal chart looks like, and sometimes personal chart aspects can supersede what the general stars are, So if you want some help with that, anything as far as perfect astrological timing or navigating through making the most of the transits, you can go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. You can check out my growing list of blogs there to assist you. You can check out my personal coaching. You can look for my Unleash Your Money Magnet program to help you unleash your money magnet. If you go to anniehelpsyou.com and then click on programs, you'll see Unleash Your Money Magnet. You'll see my Creating Successful Online Business course that will be enrolling in July. You'll see my Astrology Apprenticeship program, which will be enrolling in July. And you'll see my Shine program, which is a 28-day virtual coaching program, which helps you to make the most of the starry potentials by clearing out your inner blocks. And while you're there, definitely sign up for my free email newsletter and become part of my community and get all kinds of cool opportunities and information that come along with being in that group. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.